Have you ever been cursed for the beauty you never asked for? Have you ever stood before a man destined to be your mate, only for him to look at you as if you were nothing but a stain on his honor? And what if the only thing more dangerous than his hatred was the bond neither of you could break? That was the night the moon hung low and heavy over Silver Moon Valley, bathing the courtyard in a cold silver glow. The air smelled of rain and pine, but beneath it lingered something sharper, fear. Whispers rolled through the gathered crowd like restless wind. They say she's cursed. Poor AlphaKing, marrying that thing. He'll never touch her. He doesn't have to. The voices cut into Seraphina Veil like 1,000 tiny blades. Her fingers tightened around the silk of her wedding veil, the fabric trembling in her grasp. Beneath it, her breath came shallow, her heart beating too fast, too loud. She had dreamed of this day once, a wedding beneath the full moon, the mark of her fated mate glowing in unison with hers. But this wasn't a dream. It was a deal, a peace treaty sealed in humiliation. The great wooden gates creaked open, and the Bloodfang warriors marched in, armor black as night, eyes glowing faintly red in the torchlight. Behind them came AlphaKing Draven, mounted on a midnight stallion. He didn't need an introduction. Everyone felt him before they saw him. The raw, commanding energy that bent the air around him. His aura screamed power, danger, dominance. The kind of man who conquered empires just by walking through their doors. His eyes, silver like a predator's, swept the courtyard once before locking on the veiled bride standing at the altar. His jaw tightened. He dismounted without a word, his cloak fluttering behind him like a shadow. The officiant's voice trembled. We gather here under the blessing of the moon goddess to unite the Bloodfang and Silver Moon packs. Kyle's stare never left Seraphina. He didn't bow. He didn't smile. He looked at her as if she were a burden he was forced to carry. When he finally reached her, the scent hit him. Lavender and rain. It stirred something primal in his chest. A pull he didn't want to feel. He fought it off, straightening, hardening. Lift your veil, he commanded. His voice was deep, rough like gravel. The crowd gasped. It wasn't part of the ceremony. Seraphina froze. Her father, Elder Vale, stepped forward, his tone desperate. AlphaKing, tradition forbids. Then tradition can burn, Kale growled. I'll see the face of the woman I'm forced to call my mate. The words struck like a whip. The crowd murmured. Even the moon seemed to dim. Seraphina's hands shook. Behind the veil, tears pricked her lashes. She whispered, voice trembling, Please, don't make me. Now. He didn't shout, but his tone left no room for disobedience. Slowly, she raised her hands and peeled the veil back. The air grew still. The whispers stopped. The left side of her face was marked by faint silver lines that glowed under moonlight, traces of the curse that had haunted her since birth. But her eyes, God's, her eyes, they were crystal blue fire, the kind that could melt the frost in any man's heart, if only he'd let it. Kale's expression didn't soften. If anything, it darkened. So it's true, he muttered, his jaw clenching. The council sends me a scarred bride. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Something shattered quietly inside Seraphina. She lowered her gaze, swallowing hard. You see scars? She said softly. I see survival. But Kyle was already turning away. Let's get this farce over with. The ceremony dragged on, each vow like a blade twisting deeper. When Kale's hand brushed hers for the blood bond ritual, a strange warmth surged through them both. The silver thread of the mate bond shimmered faintly between their palms, alive, undeniable. Kale froze. For a heartbeat, his guard slipped. He looked into her eyes. If this story already has your heart racing, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss the next interesting, addictive tale of betrayal, passion, and fate. Trust me, you'll want to be here for every twist that's coming. and saw something ancient flicker there, a secret, a power that made the air hum. Then he pulled away sharply, breaking the connection. "This changes nothing," he said coldly. The officiant hesitated, then pronounced, "By the moon's grace, the union is sealed." Cheers erupted, forced, hollow. Kale didn't stay to celebrate. He walked off without looking back, his warriors following like shadows. That night, Seraphina stood alone in her chamber, the heavy gown weighing her down. The fire crackled, but the room felt cold. She touched the mark on her wrist, the faint glow of the mate bond that linked her to a man who despised her. She whispered into the silence, "You can hate me all you want, Kale Draven, but one day you'll see what you almost destroyed." Her voice trembled, but her eyes were fierce. Outside, thunder rumbled across the valley. Kale's caravan had just crossed the border back into Bloodfang territory. He sat rigid in the carriage, his beta Lycus beside him. "You were harsh," Lycus murmured. "She seemed kind." Kyle's glare could cut steel. "She's cursed. You saw her." "I saw a girl trying to hold her head up while the world tore her down." Kale said nothing, but that scent, lavender and rain, still clung to him, haunting him. He closed his eyes, shaking it off. Days passed. The Bloodfang fortress loomed dark and unforgiving, perched on a mountain of obsidian rock. The wedding had united the packs on paper, but tension buzzed in the air. The warriors eyed Seraphina like she was a ghost among wolves. Kyle barely spoke to her. He'd ordered separate chambers and forbidden her from joining pack meetings. Still, she endured. Every morning she walked through the gardens, her veil drawn, her hands brushing against the moonflowers. When no one watched, she whispered to them, and they bloomed under her touch. Her secret was growing harder to hide. One night, Kale crossed her path unexpectedly. She was by the fountain, humming softly. The melody curled through the air like silver smoke. Sad, haunting, beautiful. Kale froze. The sound tugged at something deep inside him. He'd heard hundreds of voices, thousands of songs. But this one felt like home. He stepped closer, quietly, but she sensed him. She turned, startled. The moonlight caught her face, and for a second he saw her differently. Not as a scarred bride, but as a woman, glowing softly against the night. Their eyes met. That same electric pull flared again between them. His wolf stirred, restless. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said gruffly. She tilted her head. "Why? Are you afraid I'll curse the roses too?" The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile, but he smothered it. "I don't believe in curses," he lied. "Then why are you so afraid of mine?" Her voice was calm, but her words struck deep. Kyle looked away, jaw tight. He started to walk off, but she added quietly, "Whatever you think you see in me, Alpha, you're wrong. The real danger isn't my face, it's what's coming for you." Kyle turned sharply. "What did you say?" But before she could answer, the wind picked up, cold and strange. The moonlight flickered. For a moment, Kale thought he saw a shadow behind her, a faint black mist curling around her shoulders. Then it was gone. Seraphina lowered her gaze, her voice trembling. "You'll know soon enough." Kale's pulse pounded. "Who are you really?" Her lips curved in a sad smile. "Your mate. For better or worse." She walked past him, her scent lingering in the air, lavender and rain, soft and defiant. Kyle stood there long after she was gone, his wolf pacing restlessly inside him. Something about her didn't make sense. Something dangerous hid beneath that quiet grace. And for the first time, Alpha Kale Draven, the man who feared nothing, felt a shiver crawl down his spine. Hours later, lightning tore across the sky. In her chamber, Seraphina knelt before a mirror. The storm passed, but the world did not feel cleansed. It felt hollow, like something sacred had cracked open during the night and spilled into the earth. The Bloodfang fortress rose through the morning fog, its towers clawing at the gray sky. Ravens circled above the ramparts, their caws echoing over the valley. Inside the fortress gates, the celebration had begun. The great hall shimmered with candlelight and noise. Meat roasted over iron spits, goblets clinked, and laughter rolled like thunder. Warriors toasted to peace, to power, to their alpha's new Luna. But none of them looked at her with respect. They looked at her like she was a rumor brought to life. Seraphina sat at the long stone table beside Kyle, her hands folded in her lap, her veil drawn. Her gown of pale silver contrasted sharply with the crimson banners of Bloodfang. Every time she shifted, whispers followed. She hides her face. Cursed, they say. How could the moon bless that as a Luna? Kale heard it all and said nothing. His jaw was tight, his expression carved from stone. He drank deeply, ignoring the way Seraphina's fingers trembled beside his. When one of his men leaned forward and said loudly, "Will the Alpha honor tradition and claim his Luna tonight?" Laughter erupted down the table. Kale's silver eyes flashed, and the room went silent. "I honor tradition in my own way," he said flatly. Then, without looking at Seraphina, he stood. "The feast is over." He turned and left the hall. That was how the night truly began. Servants showed Seraphina to a small chamber at the far end of the east wing, cold, stone, and distant from the Alpha's quarters. They left her without a word, their footsteps fading down the corridor. She stood there, alone, her reflection faint in the window pane. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping softly against the glass like impatient fingers. Her chest ached, not because she'd expected affection, but because she had felt it, for one fleeting heartbeat, when their bond first sparked. And now he'd buried it, beneath pride and anger. She exhaled slowly and unclasped her veil. The air hit her skin like a sigh of freedom. Her silver-marked reflection looked back at her, faintly glowing under the moonlight that slipped through the curtains. "They see the curse," she whispered, "but not what it hides." Her fingers brushed over the faint runes etched across her collarbone. They pulsed, alive, rhythmic, like a second heartbeat. The ancient spell that had protected her for years trembled, as if stirred by Kale's nearness. Then she heard it, a knock, soft and hesitant. Lycus stood in the doorway, bowing his head slightly. "Luna, I came to ensure you're settled." His tone was formal but kind, unlike the others. "Thank you," she said quietly, "though I suppose I'm not much of a Luna yet." "You are by name," he said, "and by bond, even if the Alpha doesn't yet see it." Her throat tightened. "He never will." Lycus hesitated, his gaze flickering toward the window. "The Alpha has his ghosts, but—" He hesitated. "He's not blind, Lady Seraphina, just afraid of what he might feel." She looked at him sharply. "Afraid?" "Yes," Lycus murmured. "He's fought all his life to control what's inside him, and the moment you touched him, he lost control." Before she could answer, a howl cut through the night, a call from the mountains, long and mournful. Lycus bowed once more. "Rest well, my Luna." And then he was gone. The fortress fell quiet. The candles guttered out one by one. Seraphina wandered toward the mirror again, drawn to the soft pulse of light beneath her skin. The magic whispered through her veins like a song she had forgotten. She reached for the edge of her gown and whispered an incantation in the ancient tongue. The mirror shimmered. Her reflection blurred, then cleared. Gone were the faint scars, the markings, the veil of dull skin. Her true self shone through, hair like spun gold, skin luminescent beneath the moonlight, eyes bright as the stars themselves. She was breathtaking, otherworldly, divine. But even as beauty filled the mirror, her heart clenched with sorrow. "I was cursed to be unseen," she whispered, "to hide what the goddess fears." A tear slipped down her cheek. She brushed it away before it hit the floor, leaving a faint glow where it fell. Then she began to sing. The melody rose softly, hauntingly, a lullaby of the old packs, one her mother used to hum before the curse. Her voice flowed like water, rich and aching, carrying through the open window into the night. Far above, on the fortress balcony, Kyle stood alone, sleepless. The rain beaded on his shoulders, the cold biting through his shirt. He had come here to find silence, but instead, her voice found him. It was like moonlight turned into sound. He gripped the stone railing, jaw tightening, his chest constricted, his wolf stirring restlessly inside him. The sound of her voice didn't just reach his ears. It entered him, flooding through every locked door of his heart. "Why can't I stop hearing her?" he muttered, eyes darkening. When the song faded, he could still feel it humming in the air, in his blood. The pull between them, that same unbearable connection, sparked alive again. He turned sharply and strode down the corridor. His boots echoed off the stone floor as he reached the east wing. He didn't know why he was going there, only that something in him needed to. Through the door's thin crack, he saw her. Her hair spilled down her back in waves of gold, her gown half fallen from her shoulders as she stood before the glowing mirror. The faint light traced the curves of her body, soft and pure. For a heartbeat, he forgot to breathe. Then she spoke softly, her voice trembling with sorrow. "You'll never see me, will you, Cale Draven? Not truly." He froze. She hadn't seen him, but every word struck deep, sharper than a blade. "You were meant to be my mate," she whispered to her reflection. "But the goddess has a cruel sense of humor." Cale's hand tightened on the doorframe. The heat in his chest warred with guilt and confusion. He wanted to turn away, but his wolf growled inside him. "Stay." The next moment, her reflection shimmered again and the curse returned. The glow faded, her scars reappeared. The goddess's veil fell back into place. She sank to her knees, exhausted. Kyle stepped back silently, the floor creaking beneath his boots. For a moment, her head turned sharply toward the door. "Who's there?" He said nothing, but she felt it, the faint shift of air, the trace of his scent, smoke and rain. "Kyle," she whispered. He hesitated in the shadows. Then, in a voice rough with restraint, he said, "You should rest. You were watching me." He didn't deny it. "You were singing. Does that bother you?" A pause. "It shouldn't." Their eyes met, his through the half-open door, hers shimmering with quiet challenge. The air between them was charged, magnetic, alive. "Then why can't you walk away?" she asked. He had no answer. His throat worked, but no sound came. Finally, he turned sharply and left, the sound of his boots fading into the distance. Serafina exhaled shakily, her heart pounding. She turned back to the mirror, but her reflection only stared back with quiet knowing. "He's already bound," the reflection whispered, voice echoing like her own. "He just doesn't know it yet." Kyle didn't sleep that night. He stood at his window until dawn, watching the moon dip below the mountains. Her voice still haunted him, threading through his thoughts like smoke. When the first light touched the fortress walls, he muttered to himself, "She's a danger I can't afford, and yet I can't turn away." Outside, the wind carried a faint echo, her song, repeating softly, as if the moon itself remembered her voice. The morning after the storm was too quiet, too still, like the world was holding its breath. Mist crawled over the Bloodfang Mountains, wrapping the fortress in a pale shroud. The scent of wet earth and pine clung to the air. Down below, the training grounds buzzed faintly, steel against steel, growls, the rhythm of wolves testing their strength. But above it all, a strange unease pulsed through the pack. Something unseen was moving beneath the surface. Kyle felt it before anyone else. He stood at the edge of the courtyard, his cloak whipping in the wind, silver eyes narrowed toward the forest that bordered the mountain. His wolf prowled inside him, restless, uneasy. Lycus approached, brow furrowed. The sentries found claw marks along the southern ridge, deep ones, too deep for ordinary rogues. Kale's jaw flexed. How close? Close enough that they smelled blood. He turned sharply, scanning the horizon. The scent of danger was faint but distinct, metallic, sharp, wrong. Tell them to double the guard. No one leaves the perimeter until I say so. Lycus hesitated. And the Luna? Kale's lips pressed into a thin line. She stays inside. But even as he said it, his thoughts betrayed him. He could still hear her voice from the night before, soft, haunting, the warning she'd whispered. The real danger isn't my face. It's what's coming for you. He hated how it lingered, how it sounded almost like truth. Seraphina didn't stay inside. When the Alpha's orders reached her, she was already standing at the edge of the inner courtyard, the mist curling around her gown like smoke. Her veil fluttered in the wind, and though she looked calm, her pulse raced beneath her skin. She could feel it, the same darkness that had marked her life since birth. It was close. Hunting. Her wolf stirred, uneasy. Seraphina, a voice called behind her. Lycus approached, concern in his tone. You shouldn't be out here. The Alpha's ordered. I know what he's ordered, she interrupted softly, eyes fixed on the tree line. But he doesn't understand what's coming. Lycus frowned. What do you mean? She turned slightly, her blue eyes glowing faintly under the veil. The mark that cursed me. It's not just a symbol. It's a tether. Whoever bears it can sense me. And they're close. Before he could ask more, a low growl echoed from the woods. Then another. Kyle burst from the gate a second later, blades drawn, his wolf close to the surface. His gaze locked on her instantly. I told you to stay inside. And I told you something was coming, she shot back. Before either could say more, the forest exploded. A massive shadow burst through the mist, a rogue wolf, its fur black as coal, its eyes glowing red. But it wasn't just its size that froze Kale where he stood. It was the mark, a burning black sigil coiled around its throat, pulsing with the same dark energy he'd seen once before. Seraphina's mark. Kyle reacted instantly, shifting mid-air as his wolf tore free. Silver-gray fur flashing as he collided with the rogue. They hit the ground with a snarl that shook the courtyard. The pack scattered. Shouts rang out. Kyle's claws ripped across the rogue's chest, but it didn't fall. Its strength was unnatural, its movements too fast, too deliberate. The dark mark on its neck flared, and the air itself seemed to thicken. Seraphina gasped. No, that's not a wolf. That's corruption. The creature's eyes turned toward her. For a heartbeat, Kyle saw it hesitate, as if it recognized her. Then, with terrifying speed, it lunged past him straight toward her. Seraphina! Kyle leaped after it, but she didn't run. She lifted her hand and the air around her rippled. Light exploded, pure, blinding lunar white. The rogue froze mid-air, its body suspended like a puppet in invisible strings. The mark on its throat flared violently, then cracked, like glass shattering. Kale landed hard, staring in disbelief. The energy rolling off her was impossible, ancient, raw, divine. Her veil blew back, revealing eyes glowing like two molten stars. By the goddess, Lycus breathed. Seraphina stepped forward, voice trembling but steady. Return to the shadows that bound you. The rogue howled, a sound that split the sky, then crumbled into ash, scattering into the wind. Silence followed. Only the rain dared to fall. Kale's heart pounded, his breath ragged. He rose slowly, eyes locked on her. What did you just do? Her glow faded. She looked away, trembling. What I had to. That wasn't wolf magic, he said coldly. That was witchcraft. Her chest tightened. You think I'd save your life with something dark? You used power that shouldn't exist. He took a step closer, fury and confusion twisting through his expression. That mark, it's not just a curse, is it? You're one of them. Serafina flinched as if he'd struck her. One of what, Kale? A monster? He didn't answer. You think you know darkness? She whispered, voice breaking. You have no idea what I've had to carry to keep it from consuming you, your pack, this entire valley. Kyle's eyes flickered, torn between anger and something else. Fear, perhaps. If that thing was connected to you, then how do I know you didn't summon it? Her hand trembled at her side. Because if I had, you'd already be dead. The silence between them snapped taut. Wind hissed through the courtyard, carrying the scent of rain and blood. Lycus stepped forward cautiously. Alpha, she saved you. Kyle didn't look at him. His gaze stayed locked on her. Get her out of my sight. Serafina's breath hitched. Kale. Now. The word came out like a snarl. She took a step back, pain flickering across her face, then turned away. The guards escorted her toward her chamber, but Kale's eyes followed her the entire time, hard and unreadable. When she disappeared inside, he exhaled shakily, running a hand through his hair. His palm still burned faintly, from where her magic had brushed him. The warmth felt familiar, wrongly comforting. Later that night, Kyle stood alone in the courtyard, staring at the scorched earth where the rogue had died. The ashes shimmered faintly, like embers refusing to die. He crouched, running his fingers through the dirt, then froze. The black sigil, the same one that cursed her, had burned itself into the ground. Lycus approached quietly. We found no trace of its pack, no scent trail, nothing. Kyle's eyes narrowed. It wasn't part of a pack. Then what was it? Kyle stared at the sigil, his voice low. A message. He rose slowly, his mind spinning. The timing, the mark, her warning. None of it felt like coincidence. Yet the image of her standing in the storm, light pouring from her hands, haunted him. He'd felt it. The bond. The way her power had recognized his blood, his wolf, his soul, and that terrified him more than the attack. In her chamber, Serafina sat by the window staring at the rain. Her fingers traced the silver lines along her collarbone, still warm from the magic she'd released. Every time she used it, she risked exposure, and worse, awakening the darkness tied to it. But when she'd seen the rogue leap toward Kale, something inside her had snapped. The thought of losing him, even when he despised her, was unbearable. She touched the faint glow of her mate mark. You'll hate me more for this, she whispered, but at least you're alive to hate me. The door creaked. Lycus entered quietly, bowing his head. The Alpha sent no punishment, but he's unsettled. Serafina smiled faintly, though her eyes glistened. He always is. Serafina, Lycus said softly, whatever you did out there, it wasn't evil. You saved us all. She turned to the window, her voice barely above a whisper. Tell him that. He won't listen to me. Lycus hesitated, then left her to the silence. The storm deepened outside. The moon slipped behind the clouds, and somewhere in the forest another howl answered. Deeper, darker, ancient. Serafina's heart sank. She recognized it. The curse wasn't broken. It had only been awakened. That night, Kyle dreamed of her, not as the veiled bride he'd rejected, but as the woman bathed in light, her power wild and untamed. In the dream, her hand reached for his. And when their fingers touched, his mark burned like fire. He woke with a start, breath ragged, chest heaving. The scent of lavender and rain lingered in the room. He whispered into the darkness, What are you, Serafina Vale? But deep down, his wolf already knew. Whatever she was, witch, savior, or curse, she was his. And that truth, more than anything else, terrified him. How do you fight an enemy who wears a smile? How do you protect your heart from the one person who knows how to poison it perfectly? And what if the betrayal comes not from a stranger, but from blood? The next morning, the Bloodfang fortress awoke to the hum of tension, The scent of smoke and rain still clung to the stones, ghosts of the battle that had nearly torn the mountain apart. Servants whispered in corners, glancing nervously toward the Alpha's wing, where no one dared to tread unless summoned. Serafina didn't sleep. The storm inside her had outlasted the one outside. She sat by the window, the pale dawn brushing against her veil, her eyes haunted by the memory of Cale's fury. He had looked at her like she was a stranger. No, worse, like she was a weapon aimed at his throat. She could still hear his words echoing. Get her out of my sight. Every syllable had cut deeper than a blade, a soft knock at her door. Lycus entered, cautious as always. You have a visitor, my lady. Serafina turned. A visitor? Who? Before she could finish, a familiar laugh floated in, honey-sweet and venom-laced. Don't tell me you've forgotten your own sister. Serafina froze. Lady Mirella Vale glided into the chamber like a serpent dressed in silk. Her gown shimmered black and gold, her dark curls tumbling like ink down her shoulders. Her beauty was breathtaking and cruel. Even beneath the veil, Serafina felt the old wound reopen. Mirella. Her voice trembled. What are you doing here? Mirella smiled. You didn't think I'd miss my dear sister's wedding, did you? The whole kingdom's talking about it. The cursed girl who caught the Alpha of Bloodfang. She glanced around the dimly lit room, feigning pity. Though I must say, this fortress is colder than I imagined. Fitting, perhaps. Lycus frowned. The Alpha didn't announce her visit. Mirella waved her hand. Oh, I don't need an invitation. Family never does. She turned her glittering eyes back to Serafina. May we speak alone? Serafina hesitated. It's fine, Lycus, she said softly. She won't stay long. When the door closed, Mirella's mask slipped, her smirk turning sharp. You've made quite the mess, little sister. Serafina straightened. I don't know what you mean. Oh, don't play innocent. The whole realm felt that surge of power last night. Even from the capital, the sky turned white. Mirella leaned close, her perfume heavy with jasmine and deceit. You used it, didn't you? The curse. The forbidden one Mother warned us never to touch. I saved lives, Serafina whispered. You exposed yourself, Mirella hissed, and now you've doomed us both. Serafina's throat tightened. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. Mirella's tone dripped with disdain. You've always wanted to be the hero, the sainted daughter who suffered the curse with grace. But tell me, Sarah, how long do you think your precious Alpha will tolerate a witch under his roof? Her words hit like poison. Serafina turned away, her hands trembling. Kyle doesn't what? Trust you? Mirella laughed softly. You think I didn't see the way he looked at you at the ball? Or how he barked orders to keep you locked inside like a prisoner? Oh, dear sister, you may have married an Alpha, but you're still the cursed girl no one wanted. Serafina's chest burned. She wanted to shout, to claw back the pain Mirella poured like acid. But something in her voice stopped her, a tremor beneath the cruelty. Mirella, Serafina whispered, why are you really here? For a fleeting second, Mirella's eyes softened, then hardened again. To warn you. There are whispers in the council. They think you summoned that creature. They think Bloodfang's Luna is a witch who plans to overthrow her mate. Serafina's stomach twisted. That's not true. Of course it's not, Mirella said sweetly. But truth rarely matters in politics. Perception does. And right now, every eye is on you. She paused, studying her sister's pale face beneath the veil. If I were you, I'd prepare for the day he turns against you. Because when he does, no one will stand in your defense. Then, like a phantom, she swept from the room, her perfume lingering. Sweet, suffocating, final. Down in the great hall, Cale stood before the council table, his knuckles pressed against the polished oak. The air was thick with tension. Every elder in the room could feel it, the alpha's fury simmering beneath a brittle calm. "She saved your life, Kale," Lycus said quietly, breaking the silence. "You saw what she did. That thing would have killed us all." Kale's jaw flexed. "I saw power that shouldn't exist. That mark on her. It's connected to the corruption." Elder Rowan leaned forward. "Then she may be the key to stopping it. Or the reason it started," Kale countered. His eyes darkened. "If she's tied to that darkness, we need to know." Before anyone could respond, the doors opened. Lady Morella entered, her smile polite, her movements deliberate. "Forgive the intrusion, Alpha. I couldn't resist paying my respects." Kale's gaze sharpened. "You shouldn't be here." "Oh, but I bring news," she said sweetly, stepping closer. "About your Luna." Lycus tensed. "Watch your tongue, lady." Morella smirked. "I only wish to help. My sister. She carries power that corrupts. It's not her fault, of course. She was cursed before birth. But her presence draws them, the dark wolves. I fear she may not even know it herself." Kale's wolf growled beneath his skin, restless, uncertain. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I care about her," Morella said softly, tears glimmering perfectly in her eyes. "And because I care about you, Alpha, I'd hate to see Bloodfang fall under a witch's spell." Her words slid through the room like smoke. Lycus stepped forward, fury flashing. "Enough! You dare!" Kyle raised a hand. His expression didn't change, but something cold flickered behind his gaze. "Leave us." When the hall emptied, Kyle turned to the fire, his thoughts a storm. Morella's words echoed, twisting with his own doubts. She draws them. She doesn't even know it. Could it be true? Was her power not protection but bait? The memory of her magic burned in his mind. The light, the heat, the pulse that had felt like it knew him. It hadn't felt like darkness. It had felt like recognition. But that was what terrified him most. Because if she truly was bound to the curse, then every step closer to her could be a step toward his own destruction. Night fell heavy. Seraphina stood alone in the garden, the moon's light glinting off the fountain. She sensed him before she heard him, the soft crunch of boots on gravel, the scent of pine and storm. "Kyle." She turned slowly, heart thundering. "You've been avoiding me." "I've been thinking," he said, his voice low, distant. "Your sister came to see me." Her breath caught. "Mirella?" He nodded once. "She told me things, about your curse, about the dark wolves." Seraphina swallowed. "And you believed her?" "I don't know what to believe anymore," he admitted. His eyes locked on hers, cold fire and confusion mingling. "You kept things from me, about your power, about what you really are." "What I am," she whispered, stepping closer, "is your mate." He didn't move. "Then tell me the truth. All of it." Her lips parted, but the words wouldn't come. Because the truth wasn't just dangerous. It was damning. That Morella wasn't just her jealous sister. She was part of the darkness hunting them. That the curse didn't come from Seraphina's blood. It came from Morella's betrayal. If she told him, it would start a war that would tear the Vale bloodline apart. So she did what she'd always done. She protected him, even from the truth. "I can't," she whispered. Kyle's jaw clenched. Pain flickered in his eyes before he turned away. "Then I can't trust you." The words broke something inside her. The fountain's water rippled, reflecting the hollow ache in her chest. She wanted to scream that she'd die before she hurt him, that every spell she'd ever cast was for him. But he was already walking away. And in the shadows, hidden beyond the garden wall, Morella watched with a smile curving her lips, the kind that promised destruction. That night, as the moon reached its zenith, Seraphina knelt before her mirror. Her reflection shimmered faintly, and then another face appeared behind hers. Morella's. "You should have stayed silent, sister," Morella's voice whispered through the glass. Now, the darkness knows where you are. The mirror cracked. The candlelight flickered. And far away in the woods, the howl returned. Deeper, stronger, hungrier. The dark wolves were coming again, and this time they weren't after Bloodfang. They were after her. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky. Crimson light bled across the peaks of the Bloodfang Mountains, washing the fortress in an eerie glow. Every howl from the valley seemed to carry an omen. Every flicker of torchlight danced with unease. The night was meant for celebration, a royal gathering to honor the Luna of Bloodfang. Yet, beneath the silken banners and gilded laughter, something darker stirred. Seraphina stood before her mirror, her trembling hands fixing the final pin on her veil. The sheer silver fabric cascaded down her shoulders, delicate as mist, concealing everything the world was never meant to see. Beneath it, her heart pounded like a drum. The whispers from the corridors reached her even here. The cursed Luna, the witch bride, the Alpha's mistake. She drew in a slow breath. I am not their mistake, she told herself. I am his mate. And yet, Kyle hadn't come to her chambers once since their confrontation in the garden. The memory of his voice haunted her. Then I can't trust you. Those words had rooted deep, sharper than any blade. A knock came. My lady, murmured Lycus, stepping in. It's time. The Alpha awaits. Seraphina nodded, but her hands refused to move. Lycus hesitated, his eyes flicking toward the veil. You don't have to go out there if you don't wish to, he said softly. They don't deserve you. She smiled faintly behind the silk. Perhaps not, but he does, even if he no longer believes it. The hall was a sea of gold and crimson. Nobles from every pack in the realm gathered under chandeliers heavy with firelight. Music echoed. Laughter filled the air. And yet, when the Luna entered, silence rippled through the crowd like a sudden frost. Kyle stood at the far end, clad in black and silver, the mark of his lineage glowing faintly against his throat. His gaze lifted and found her. For one fleeting second, the world seemed to pause. Then he turned away. The rejection burned through her chest, but she kept walking. Each step echoed like thunder, every rustle of her gown a reminder that she did not belong. At the head of the hall, the council waited, and beside them, like a viper poised to strike, stood Morella. Dearest sister, Morella cooed, her smile too bright, too sharp. You look radiant. Seraphina met her gaze, calm and steady. And you look dangerous. A flash of teeth. Flattery will get you nowhere. The musician struck up a tune, and Kale lifted his cup. To the unity of Bloodfang and Veil, he said, his voice steady but hollow. May the curse that divides us fall away under this moon. Gasps rippled through the guests. Curse was not a word spoken lightly at a royal banquet. Seraphina's hands tightened around her goblet. The word was a knife, deliberate, meant for her. Morella leaned close, her voice a whisper that slithered into Seraphina's ear. He doubts you. They all do. But don't worry, little sister. I'll help them see the truth. Before Seraphina could react, the sharp sound of glass shattering pierced the air. Morella's hand darted out, grabbing her veil. Perhaps, she purred. We should show them who you truly are. Morella, Seraphina gasped, reaching to stop her. Too late. The veil tore free. The fabric fluttered to the marble floor like falling snow. A collective gasp surged through the hall. Under the crimson glow of the blood moon, Seraphina's face was revealed. But it wasn't horror that greeted them. It was awe. Her skin shimmered faintly, as if kissed by starlight. Veins of silver traced her cheekbones, pulsing gently with light. Her eyes, once thought shadowed, now glowed with a celestial radiance that seemed to drink in the moon itself. She wasn't monstrous. She was divine. Every whisper died. Even the torches dimmed. Kyle's breath caught. He had imagined scars, deformity, something cursed, but what he saw was otherworldly, terrible and beautiful, sacred and untouchable, a goddess wrapped in mortal skin. By the ancients, one of the elders whispered. She's marked by the moon herself. Morella stepped back, shock flickering before she masked it with a sneer. Don't be fooled, she hissed. That light isn't holy. It's the curse awakening. But no one spoke. The light beneath Serafina's skin pulsed brighter, too bright, until pain lanced through her body. She gasped, clutching her chest as the mark over her heart flared like molten silver. The air itself trembled. Serafina! Kyle's voice broke through the haze as she staggered. He caught her just as her knees gave way, her body convulsing against his arms. Don't touch her, Morella shrieked. She'll taint you. Silence! Kyle's roar cracked through the room like lightning. The guests recoiled. His wolf surged to the surface, his eyes bleeding gold. She's my mate. No one touches her. But even as he held her, the glow beneath her skin spread. Wild, untamed. Her pulse quickened, her breath shallow. Kyle, she whispered, her voice breaking. It's hurting. I'm here, he said fiercely. I've got you. Just breathe. The mark flared again, brighter than fire. The chandeliers above shattered. Wind howled through the great hall as if summoned by the gods themselves. The blood moon outside seemed to tremble in answer. Lycus and the guards rushed forward, but Kyle barked. Stay back. His arms tightened around her. He could feel her heart racing like a trapped bird. What's happening to her? Morella's laughter rang sharp. The curse has chosen its vessel. You did this, Kyle snarled, eyes blazing. You knew. Oh dear Alpha, Morella whispered, eyes glinting crimson under the moonlight. You still don't understand. The curse was never hers alone. As if answering her words, Serafina screamed. The sound tore through the hall, raw and agonizing, and the air itself bent around her. Light exploded from her skin, blinding, pure, ancient. For one terrible instant, Kale saw visions flash behind his eyes. A temple drowned in blood, a woman of light and shadow, a betrayal that split the heavens. Then, silence. Serafina's body went limp. Kyle caught her before she hit the floor, his chest heaving. The glow faded from her skin, leaving her pale and still. He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice cracking. Sarah, look at me, don't you dare leave me. Her lips parted faintly, the ghost of a whisper escaping. It's waking. Kale, don't let it. And then her eyes rolled back, and she fell into darkness. The hall was chaos. Some guests fled. Others dropped to their knees, muttering prayers. The blood moon outside pulsed brighter, casting the world in red. Morella stood at the top of the steps, watching as Kale cradled Serafina in his arms, his jaw tight with anguish. This, she said softly, is only the beginning. Kale looked up, fury radiating from him like a storm. If she dies, he growled, I'll end you. But Morella only smiled. Then you'll destroy what little remains of your Luna's soul, because the curse is bound to my blood as well as hers. Kill me, and you kill her. Kale froze. The words hit like a blade to the chest. Then Morella turned, her gown sweeping behind her as she disappeared into the shadows, leaving chaos, terror, and a fallen goddess in her wake. Kyle's voice broke the silence, raw with pain. Get the healers, he ordered. Now, Lycus ran. Servants rushed, but Kale never looked away from Serafina's face. The faint shimmer beneath her skin was fading, the light of something ancient dying away. He pressed his lips to her forehead, whispering, Whatever this curse is, I'll break it, even if it kills me. Outside, the blood moon reached its zenith, and in the forest below, something stirred. The dark wolves lifted their heads, their eyes gleaming crimson. Their queen had awakened, and now nothing would stop the storm. The storm hadn't left the mountain since the blood moon. It clung to the fortress like grief, whispering through the stone halls, pressing cold fingers against every window pane. 3 days had passed, yet the scent of burnt magic and blood still lingered in the air. Kale hadn't left her side once. The healers had done everything: herbs, chants, ancient salves, but nothing soothed the Luna's stillness. She lay upon her bed as if carved from moonlight, her skin pale and faintly shimmering, her pulse shallow, her breath a fragile thread. The mark over her heart no longer burned, but it glowed with a ghostly light as if guarding some deeper secret. Kale sat beside her, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. The moment she fell, the look of terror that wasn't for herself but for him. He had seen many things as Alpha. He had seen death. He had buried friends. He had killed rogues with his bare hands. But nothing, not a blade, not a curse, had ever broken him like this silence. "Damn you, Sarah," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "You're supposed to fight. You always fight." He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. The touch was feather-light, reverent. For the first time, he noticed the small things he'd ignored before. The faint lavender scent that clung to her skin. The way her lashes curled against her cheeks. The small crescent scar along her wrist, where she'd once protected a pup from a feral wolf. He had hated her for secrets she couldn't tell. He had doubted her because fear was easier than faith. And now, staring at her unmoving form, he realized the truth he'd refused to see. She hadn't been the curse in his life. He had been hers. The door creaked. Lycus stepped inside quietly. He looked as weary as his Alpha. "No change?" Kale shook his head, his gaze still on her. "The healers say she's trapped, between here and something else." Lycus hesitated, then said, "The elders believe it's the curse, that it's feeding from her life force." Kale's jaw tightened. "Then I'll tear it out myself." "Kale," I said myself. He rose, pacing toward the window where the rain carved silver lines down the glass. "Morella said their bloodlines are bound. That to kill her would kill Sarah too." His fists clenched. "That means they share more than blood. They share a history, and I need to know what it is." Lycus stepped closer. "How?" Kale turned, his eyes burning gold in the dim light. "The mark," he said simply. "It links her to the curse, and to me. If I open it, if I let her power show me what she's hiding, maybe I can find her." Lycus paled. "That's forbidden, even for an Alpha. The moon goddess can damn me later," Kale snapped. "Right now she's dying." Silence filled the chamber, heavy and unyielding. Then Lycus bowed his head. "Then may the goddess forgive you both." Kyle knelt beside the bed, his hands trembling slightly as he placed them over the mark on her heart. The warmth beneath his palms pulsed faintly, like a second heartbeat. He closed his eyes. "Sarah," he whispered, "if you can hear me, show me what I couldn't see before." The moment his words left his lips, the mark flared, bright as the sun. A surge of light erupted from her chest, slamming into him like a wave. Kyle gasped as his surroundings vanished, replaced by a blinding void of white and silver. He stumbled, clutching his head, his heartbeat echoing in his ears. Then, the world reformed. He was standing in a courtyard, familiar yet wrong. The air was rich with jasmine and blood. The sky was torn in half, one side bathed in moonlight, the other shrouded in darkness. And before him, Seraphina knelt, younger, her hair longer, her hands stained red. Kyle froze. "Sarah?" She didn't hear him. She was whispering to someone. A woman draped in black and silver, her face obscured by a veil of shadow. "Please," Seraphina begged, "spare them. Take me instead." The woman's voice was soft but cruel. "A veil's sacrifice is never enough. Your family chose defiance. The curse is the price." A scream split the air. a man's voice, raw and desperate. Cale turned and saw a figure fall to the ground, his chest marked with the same sigil that now burned on Seraphina's skin. Her father. Seraphina's cry was one of pure anguish. No! The veiled woman tilted her head. Love is the first illusion, child. Power is the second. You will learn to fear both. Then, with a gesture, the woman vanished, leaving Seraphina trembling in a pool of moonlight and blood. Kyle stumbled forward, wanting to hold her, to stop her pain, but the vision shifted again. Now, he stood in a different room, a temple of silver fire. Seraphina was older, her face hollowed by grief, and beside her stood Morella. Morella's voice was honeyed, coaxing. You can't trust them, sister. They'll never see you as anything but cursed. Let me carry the burden instead. Seraphina's eyes glistened. No, the curse was meant for one, and it ends with me. Morella's lips curved into a soft, cruel smile. Then you'll die for it, and when you do, the world will forget your name, but not mine. Before Cale could react, Morella pressed her hand to Seraphina's chest. The sigil burned between them, splitting, dividing, binding their souls in twin agony. Seraphina screamed, collapsing. Cale shouted, "Stop!" But it was no use. The vision shattered and Cale was thrown back into the present, gasping, his hands still on her glowing mark. The light dimmed, leaving him shaking. His throat ached. His heart, that cold, guarded thing, felt as if it had been torn open. He finally understood. Seraphina had been cursed not for wickedness but for mercy. She had bargained her own soul to save her family. She had carried that darkness alone, not because she wanted power, but because she couldn't bear to let anyone else suffer. And Morella had twisted that sacrifice into her own weapon. Cale rose slowly, his breath ragged. He looked down at her, at the woman who had fought for him, loved him, endured his cruelty, and guilt seared through him like fire. He brushed her cheek with trembling fingers. You should have told me, he whispered. You should have let me carry it with you. His voice cracked. But I was too blind to see you were never my curse, you were my salvation. For the first time he didn't hide the tears that fell. They landed on her collarbone, glinting in the faint moonlight. He pressed his forehead to hers, his vow slipping from his lips like a prayer. I'll protect you, Seraphina Vale. From your past. From your sister. From the gods themselves, if I must. The moon goddess gave you this pain. But I swear on my blood, she'll never take you from me. The mark on her chest pulsed once, faintly as if answering him. Cale exhaled shakily, his heart breaking and mending all at once. For the first time in his life, the great Alpha of Bloodfang bowed not to a council, nor a god, but to the sleeping woman who had taught him what it meant to love without fear. Outside, the storm broke. The moon reappeared from behind the clouds, pale and cold, but pure, and deep in the mountains, where the dark wolves stirred, something ancient shifted, sensing the Alpha's vow. Because love, when bound by fate and blood, had just declared war on destiny itself. Have you ever touched something so fragile, you were afraid your very breath would break it? Have you ever loved someone so much that even their silence screamed louder than your heartbeat? Cale Bloodfang had, and for the first time in his life, the Alpha who had commanded armies found himself powerless against the one battle he couldn't win, the battle for her life. The moonlight slanted through the tall, arched windows, turning the chamber into a cathedral of ghosts. The rain had ceased, but the fortress still hummed with the aftermath of storm and sorrow. Seraphina lay motionless, her body faintly aglow, the silver veins beneath her skin pulsing to a rhythm older than time itself. The air around her shimmered, alive with power and pain. A curse that breathed, waiting for a moment to rise again. Kyle sat beside her, the weight of revelation pressing against his chest like iron chains. Every vision still burned behind his eyes, her cries, her father's blood, Morella's betrayal. He had walked through her memories and come back changed. The alpha inside him raged, but the man, the broken, grieving man, could barely breathe. He reached for her hand, rough fingers trembling as they enclosed hers. Her skin was cold, but beneath it, the faint hum of energy still pulsed, like a song too faint to hear. "Do you remember the night you sang to the pack pups?" he whispered, voice hoarse with exhaustion. "You said music healed the frightened heart. You said it made monsters less afraid of the dark." His jaw clenched. "Sing again, Sarah. Please. Because I think the monster this time is me." No answer. Only the slow flicker of her chest rising and falling. He leaned closer, pressing her hand against his heart. "You carried this curse alone. You protected me even when I didn't deserve it. I saw what she did to you, what she made you believe about yourself. But I won't let her win, Sarah. Not this time." The wind shifted. Somewhere beyond the chamber, a wolf howled, low, mournful, ancient. It was answered by another, and then another, until the entire mountain seemed to cry with them. Cale's eyes darkened, his wolf stirring beneath the surface. His instincts whispered that something was coming, something born from the same darkness that had marked Seraphina. A faint shiver ran through her body, her lips parted, a soft exhale escaping like a sigh. Kyle froze. "Sarah." Her eyes didn't open, but her mark began to glow brighter. Light bled from beneath her skin, silver fire threading up her neck, spilling across her chest. The air thickened, crackling with static. Cale's wolf surged to the surface, his golden eyes gleaming as he gripped her shoulders. "Sarah, can you hear me?" Her voice came like a whisper from another world. "Kyle?" He inhaled sharply. "I'm here." Her body convulsed, light spilling from her fingertips. The energy flared, wild, desperate, alive. Cale gritted his teeth as it coursed through him, searing his veins. The world blurred, and suddenly, visions flooded him again, sharper, faster, relentless. He saw her running barefoot through a forest of silver trees, the moon at her back. He saw her crying as she watched her family burn, the curse eating their souls from within. He saw Morella smiling beside her, whispering lies that cut deeper than blades. And then, he saw something new. A shadowed temple, a circle of elders chanting in the dark, a figure cloaked in moonlight, the goddess herself, reaching down to touch Seraphina's brow. "Your soul is divided," the goddess said, her voice both sorrow and storm. "Half light, half curse. You will love an alpha who bears the blood of those who wronged your kind. His love will either free you or destroy the world." The vision shattered. Cale gasped, his knees hitting the floor beside the bed. His heart thundered so violently it hurt. Free her, or destroy the world? He stared at her glowing form, horror and awe twisting inside him. Was that what this was all about? Was that why fate had drawn them together? Not for love, but for ruin? Her hand suddenly twitched, fingers brushing his cheek. "Cale," she murmured faintly, her voice breaking. "Don't let her win. Promise me." "I promise," he breathed, gripping her hand. "I won't lose you." The light surged once more, then dimmed, fading like the last ember of a dying star. Seraphina went still again, her body falling limp in his arms. But this time, Cale wasn't just a desperate lover watching his mate fade. He was an alpha who had glimpsed the truth. He rose slowly, eyes blazing gold. "Lycus," he barked. The beta appeared instantly, his expression tight. "My alpha. Prepare the guard. Morella's not just a traitor. She's the anchor of the curse. We find her. We find the root. Cale, you can't leave her unguarded. If She's not alone," Cale said darkly. "The goddess herself is watching her, and if that means I must defy the heavens to bring her back, then so be it." The storm outside howled again, wind tearing through the mountain like an omen. The pack could feel it. Their alpha's vow, the weight of his rage, the raw promise of love turned into weaponry. He turned back to her one last time, brushing a thumb across her lips. You once told me that destiny was a thread we could cut and weave anew. I'm cutting mine, Sarah, and this time I'm weaving it around you. He bent and kissed her forehead, letting his warmth linger on her skin. Sleep, my Luna. I'll end this, even if I have to set the moon itself on fire. As he left the chamber, the air behind him shimmered faintly, as if something divine had heard his vow and taken it as a challenge. Far below the fortress, deep within the Vale ruins, Morella stood before an ancient mirror. Her reflection flickered, half her face, half Seraphina's, her lips curled. So, Brother Alpha has seen the truth. She dragged a bloodied finger across the mirror's surface, the image rippling with silver fire. Let him come. The curse was born from love once, and it will end the same way. Above, the moon darkened, and in her chamber, Seraphina's mark flared once, brighter than before, as if answering both sisters at once. Love had awakened. War was coming. The fortress stood on the edge of dawn, quiet, haunted, wrapped in silver mist. The storm had passed, leaving behind the scent of wet earth and the faint hum of magic. The pack moved in silence below, their howls muted, their hearts bound to their alpha's pain. Inside the moon chamber, the air shimmered like a living thing. Seraphina stirred on the bed of moonstone, the last remnants of her glow flickering beneath her pale skin. Kyle stood by the window, his hand pressed against the cold glass as the first light of dawn bled over the mountains. His armor was spattered with blood, his own and Morella's soldiers. His body trembled from the battle, but his eyes never left her. "Don't you dare fade from me now," he whispered. His voice was low, dangerous, but beneath it, a plea. "You promised me a sunrise, Sarah. Don't you break it now." Her lips parted. The faintest breath escaped, soft, trembling. "Kale." He turned instantly. "Sarah, I'm here." Her eyes fluttered open, glistening pools of silver and storm. But this time, they weren't hollow. There was depth there, truth. The curse still clung to her skin, faint and shimmering, but something within her had changed, awakened. "Kyle," she breathed again, her voice fragile but steady. "You went after her." "I did," he replied, moving closer. "And I'll finish it if I must. Morella's blood won't stain another dawn." "No." Seraphina's voice was almost a song, breaking and rising in one breath. "This isn't just her doing. You don't understand, Kale. You never could, not until now." He frowned, kneeling beside her. "Then tell me what I've been blind to all this time." Her fingers brushed his cheek, trembling, cold, but real. "The curse was never meant to make me ugly," she whispered. "It was meant to hide me." Kyle blinked. "Hide you?" "Yes," she murmured, tears slipping from the corners of her eyes. "From the moon goddess herself." The words hung in the air like thunder before the strike. Kyle's heart clenched. "The goddess? Why would she?" "Because I am what she fears most." Her voice quivered but did not falter. "A child born of both moon and flame. My blood carries the first alpha's fire and the moon's own light. I was born to unite what the gods tore apart, the dark and the divine. But the goddess, she saw it as a threat." Kale's pulse roared in his ears. The chamber seemed to close around them, the air thick with revelation. "She cursed you." "She disguised me," Seraphina corrected softly. "She cloaked me in shadows so her light could never find me. Because if it did, her power would wane. The curse wasn't punishment, Kyle, it was protection. From her." His breath caught. "So the goddess who made us all feared you?" "She feared what I would become," Seraphina whispered. "She feared that love, true untainted love, could free me. Because love is the one thing even the gods can't control." The silence that followed was deafening. Kyle's gaze burned into hers, searching for the lie, the illusion. But all he found was the steady truth reflected in her trembling eyes. His voice dropped to a rasp. And now that I've seen you, that I've loved you, the curse is breaking, she finished for him, her tears glinting in the dawn. But not without cost. Every curse has its anchor and every spell its price. Kale's jaw tightened. Tell me. She shook her head slowly. No, Kale. You've already bled for me. You've defied your pack, your goddess, your destiny. This one, this price. I can't let you pay it. He grasped her shoulders, pulling her gently but firmly against his chest. You don't let me, Sarah. You're my mate, my Luna. Whatever it costs, I'll pay it. Just tell me what I must do. Her hand slipped between his, her thumb tracing the scar across his palm. The curse can only be broken through true acceptance, she whispered. You must accept all of me, not the light, not the woman you think I am, but the darkness too, the rage, the blood, the goddess's fear, every part of me you've tried to protect yourself from. Kale's eyes softened. I already do. No, Kale. Her tears spilled freely now. You love me, but you don't accept me. You still see the girl who was broken by her sister, the bride who needed saving. You haven't seen what I truly am, what the curse was hiding. Before he could respond, her mark flared again. Bright, burning silver. A pulse of raw magic exploded through the chamber, shattering the windows. Kyle shielded her instinctively, but the light was blinding, alive, divine. When it faded, Seraphina stood, her aura glowing like a living flame. Her hair, once tangled and dark, shimmered like molten silver. Her eyes blazed with moonlight. She was no longer the fragile girl he'd once pitied. She was something more. A being forged of light and sorrow, beauty and danger. Kale's heart stopped. Sarah. She turned to him. Radiant, terrible, ethereal. Now you see me, Kale Bloodfang. He rose to his feet, his chest rising and falling with ragged breath. The alpha in him wanted to kneel. The man wanted to weep. You're magnificent, he whispered. A small, pained smile curved her lips. Then why do you look afraid? Because I know what it means, he said quietly. Power like this doesn't come without a price. Her eyes softened. You're right. The light around her dimmed. To free me from the curse, the goddess demanded a sacrifice, something you hold dearer than your own life. Only then will she release her claim on me. Kale's throat went dry. My life? Seraphina shook her head. No, something more cruel. Your wolf. The words hit him like a blade. She looked away. If you give it up, if you surrender the beast within, the curse will shatter. I will be free. But you will cease to be alpha. You'll lose your strength, your bond to the pack, your immortality. You'll become mortal, Kale. For a long moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the wind sighing through the broken windows and the soft hum of Seraphina's magic. Then Kale exhaled slowly, a sound filled with both agony and resolve. If that's what it takes, then it's done. Kale, no. He took her hand, pressing it to his heart. I was born to fight, to command, to protect. But none of that means anything if I can't do it for you. You think I need my wolf to be strong? He leaned closer, his eyes fierce, glistening. You made me stronger than the moon ever could. Her tears shimmered like rain on fire. You'll die. Then I'll die loving you. The moment froze between them, raw, infinite. And then, with a trembling breath, Seraphina whispered, Kyle, I can't let you. But before she could finish, he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was a vow, a surrender, a storm. The room blazed with light, every pulse of his heart feeding into her mark, every breath threading their souls tighter. The goddess's curse roared, ancient and furious, but Kale didn't stop. He poured everything into that kiss, his strength, his wolf, his essence. The light broke. Seraphina gasped as the mark on her skin split like glass, silver fire rushing outward. The curse screamed, 1,000 voices echoing into the ether, and then silence. When the light faded, Kale collapsed into her arms, his body trembling violently. His golden eyes dimmed, fading into a deep human brown. "Kale," she cried, clutching him. "No, no, no." He smiled faintly, blood on his lips. "Told you, the monster didn't need saving." Her tears fell onto his cheek, glowing faintly as they touched his skin. "You fool," she whispered, half sob, half laugh. "You beautiful, stubborn fool." He coughed weakly. "So, was I right?" "About what?" "That sunrise you promised." His voice was barely a breath. She looked toward the horizon. The first true light of dawn spilled into the room, golden, warm, alive. She turned back to him, cradling his face. "It's here," she whispered. "You made it happen." Kale's smile widened, faint but real. Then it was worth it. His body went limp in her arms. Seraphina screamed, not in grief, but in fury. Her power surged once more, the light in her veins blazing so bright it cracked the stones beneath her. Above, the clouds parted, and for the first time in centuries, the moon goddess herself appeared, her voice like thunder wrapped in silk. "You would defy me for love?" Seraphina stood, trembling but unbroken, Kale's body still in her arms. "No," she said, her voice like a sword unsheathed. "I would replace you for it." The goddess's laughter echoed through the heavens, cold, distant, fading, and as the last of her voice disappeared into the dawn, Seraphina knelt and pressed her lips to Kale's forehead. "Then let it be written," she whispered, "that love, not fear, commands the moon." The dawn bled gold across the ruins of the moon chamber. The air still crackled with the echo of shattered curses, the scent of magic, steel, and tears heavy upon it. Seraphina knelt upon the cold stone floor, Kale's motionless body in her arms. His pulse was faint, his breath shallow. The golden light in his eyes, the light of the wolf, had dimmed to human brown. "Kyle." Her voice broke like glass. "Please, open your eyes." Nothing. Only the faint tremor of wind stirring his hair, whispering through the wreckage of moonstone shards. She pressed her forehead to his. Her power trembled, seeking his heartbeat, desperate to pull him back. But the bond between them was unraveling. The mate link flickered weakly, like the last ember of a dying fire. And then, the air shifted. A shadow fell across her. The moon goddess stood before her. No longer veiled in mist or legend, she appeared radiant and terrible, her form carved from light, her gaze colder than eternity. The moon above burned silver, its reflection alive in her eyes. "Seraphina Vale," she said, her voice a whisper and a storm. "Daughter of flame, breaker of bounds, you have taken what was not yours to take." Seraphina rose, her arms still wrapped around Kale. Her tears gleamed like molten silver as she met the goddess's gaze. "He gave himself freely." "He defied divine law," the goddess hissed. "He traded the soul of a wolf for a mortal's love. You would have him suffer for your defiance?" Seraphina's eyes blazed. "Suffer?" She looked down at Kale, brushing a trembling hand across his cheek. "He taught me what it means to live, to fight, to feel. You call it defiance, but it was devotion. He was never yours to command." The goddess's expression hardened. "You think your love greater than the moon that births your kind?" Seraphina's voice rose, strong and terrible. "No, but it's purer. You curse what you fear, Moon Mother. And you feared me. You feared what love could make of me, what it could make of us." The moonlight quivered. The goddess's aura flared like a blade unsheathed. Then prove your love, she said coldly. Prove that it can surpass death itself. Prove it, with sacrifice. Seraphina froze. What more can I give? The goddess extended a hand toward Kale's chest. His body breathes, but his spirit falters. The wolf that was his soul wanders between worlds. To bring him back, another bond must be forged, but the balance demands a price. What price? Your divinity. The goddess's tone was merciless. Surrender the half of you that is light, and you may restore him. Refuse, and he will fade before the next moonrise. Seraphina's breath caught. She staggered backward, her aura trembling. To lose her light was to become mortal, to fall from grace, to burn away the power that had defined her since birth. And yet, she looked down at him, at the man who had once vowed to burn the heavens for her. She smiled through her tears. Then take it. The goddess's eyes widened slightly. You would forsake your divinity? I never wanted to be divine, Seraphina whispered. I only wanted to be his. The moon goddess hesitated. For a brief, flickering moment, something, admiration, sorrow, passed across her celestial face. So be it. Her palm pressed against Seraphina's chest. A surge of cold fire erupted through her, light and shadow warring inside her body. She gasped, clutching Kyle tighter. Her silver aura fractured, splintered, and then broke. The power fled her body in ribbons of light, weaving itself around Kale's still form. His chest arched. His eyes shot open, not gold this time, but a molten mix of brown and faint silver. Mortal, and yet touched by something divine. Seraphina, he gasped, reaching for her. She swayed, her knees buckling. Kale caught her, his trembling hands cradling her face. No, 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 what did you do? She smiled weakly. Gave you back your sunrise. He shook his head, tears streaking down his dirt-stained cheeks. You gave me everything. Her fingers brushed his lips the same way she had the first night they'd fought under the blood moon. Then promise me you'll live it. For both of us. But before he could answer, the goddess's voice thundered once more. It is done. The mountain shuddered. Light flared one last time, not cruel, but cleansing. The curse, once bound to her blood, burned away into the ether. The mark over Seraphina's heart dissolved, leaving behind a faint scar, a memory, not a chain. Kyle looked down at her in awe. You're free. Seraphina exhaled shakily, her voice barely a whisper. No, Kale, we are. The goddess's form began to fade, her voice distant, solemn. You have remade the bond of moon and flame. But remember, child of fire, mortal love burns bright and brief. And then she was gone. Silence fell, deep, trembling, alive. Kyle sank to his knees, holding Seraphina as dawn poured through the shattered roof. You shouldn't have done that, he murmured. You shouldn't have taken my place. Seraphina smiled faintly. You once told me love wasn't about who leads or who follows. It's about who refuses to let go. Her pulse quickened beneath his touch. Her eyes, glowing faintly silver, lifted to his. Kale, do you feel it? He frowned. What? The bond, she breathed. It's not broken. It's changed. And then he felt it too. A hum, low and deep, threading through their veins. The mate bond pulsed again, reborn. Not as Alpha and Luna, not as goddess and mortal, but as equals. Kyle's heart swelled, fierce and raw. Seraphina Vale, he said, voice trembling. You are everything I never knew I was meant to protect. She smiled. And you, Kale Bloodfang, are everything I never believed I deserved. The moonlight brightened once more, painting them in gold and silver. Kale rose, drawing her up with him. His armor, once a symbol of dominance and power, slipped from his shoulders, falling to the floor with a hollow clang. I am no Alpha, he said softly, his voice breaking. Not anymore. Seraphina's fingers traced the scar over his heart, the place where his wolf once lived. Then what are you? He knelt before her, slowly, reverently, his head bowed, his voice low but clear. I am yours. Her breath caught, tears spilling freely. The alpha who once ruled every heart in his pack now knelt beneath the fading moon, his crown surrendered, his pride undone. And as he pressed his bloodied palm to hers, the air between them shimmered. A new mark, forged of blood, flame, and moonlight, appeared where their hands met. A bond not given by the gods, but created by choice. Kale whispered the vow that would echo through ages. With my blood, I bind myself to you, not as alpha, not as beast, but as man, not by destiny, but by love. The ground trembled. The curse screamed one last time, a fading echo of divine wrath, and then shattered into dust. Seraphina's eyes glowed, brighter than the moon itself. Her aura spread in waves of silver fire, illuminating the mountain, healing what centuries of pain had destroyed. Every wolf in the valley felt it, the pulse of their alpha's sacrifice, the rebirth of their Luna's power. And when the light dimmed, Seraphina stood radiant and whole, her hair flowing like starlight, her presence divine yet achingly human. Kale rose slowly, his mortal heart pounding, his breath catching as he gazed at her. You're... She smiled, soft, eternal, free. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. Then so am I. The first true dawn in 1,000 years broke across the mountain. The wolves howled, not in mourning, but in reverence. The world itself seemed to breathe again. And as they stood in the light, hand in hand, the alpha and his Luna, no longer bound by fate or curse, finally found what neither God nor destiny could steal. Peace. Have you ever seen peace after war? Felt silence where there was once only the echo of screams? Have you ever looked into the eyes of the one who nearly died for you, and realized that love had rewritten the very laws of heaven to let you both breathe again? Because that's what it felt like in the days that followed, when the moon no longer ruled, and love, fragile and mortal, became the new dawn. The wind that swept through the Bloodfang Valley no longer carried the scent of blood or ash. It carried life. Where once stood ruins and bones, now rose silver forests and rivers that shimmered like molten glass beneath the morning sun. The wolves roamed freely again, their howls no longer bound by command but by harmony. And at the heart of it all, upon the rebuilt fortress that stood between mountain and moon, Kale and Seraphina ruled, not as Alpha and Luna, not as God and mortal, but as one. The great hall of the fortress glowed with firelight as Seraphina entered. Her gown flowed like liquid silver, her hair loose around her shoulders catching the light like spun starlight. Every step she took echoed softly against the stone, not the tread of a ruler but the grace of someone who had carried heaven and hell in still chosen tenderness. Kale stood by the window, his back to her, the sunrise painting his skin in shades of gold and ember. Without his wolf, he looked mortal, yet there was something deeper in his eyes now. A quiet strength, the kind that no power or crown could forge. Still brooding at dawn? Seraphina's voice was soft, teasing, familiar. He turned, smiling faintly. I wasn't brooding. I was thinking. She arched a brow. That's what brooding is, my love. Kale chuckled, low and warm, the sound like distant thunder before rain. I was thinking how different the valley feels. The wolves hunt, the packs trade, the pups play by the river again. No more howls of challenge, no more fear. Seraphina moved closer, her fingers brushing along his arm. Peace unsettles you. It does, he admitted. I've lived too long in battle to know what peace feels like. She smiled faintly, her hand slipping into his. Then we'll learn together. He looked down at her, the woman who had once been cursed, hunted and feared, and his chest ached with the same awe he'd felt that first night beneath the blood moon. You make it sound so simple. "It is," she said softly, "when you stop fighting love." That evening the moon rose over the valley, not cold and distant as before, but warm, tinted gold as though blushing under the gaze of the stars. 1,000 wolves gathered beneath it, their eyes reflecting the light as the drums of the moon feast began. Seraphina stood on the high terrace, the wind tangling her hair as she looked down at the gathering. The packs of Bloodfang, Shadowveil, and Emberclaw, once enemies, now shared food, laughter, and stories beneath the same sky. It was the unity the prophecy had whispered of, the one the goddess had feared. Kyle joined her, his cloak brushing hers. "They still call you the reborn Luna." She smiled wistfully. "And you?" "They call me the Alpha who knelt." She glanced at him, eyes glimmering. "Do you regret it?" He reached out, tracing a strand of silver hair from her face. "Every day," he murmured. Her smile faltered, until his voice softened. "Every day, I regret that I didn't do it sooner." Seraphina laughed, the sound pure, like wind through bells. "Careful, Kale Bloodfang. The mortals will think you've gone soft." "Let them," he said, pulling her close. "They can have their legends. I have you." Later that night, when the feast had quieted and the stars hung heavy like diamonds, Seraphina wandered alone to the edge of the cliff. The forest below shimmered with fireflies, their light reflecting in the lake like broken moonlight. And for the first time in months she felt her heartbeat tremble with something she hadn't felt since the goddess vanished. Unease. The air shimmered. Cold. Familiar. Then, like mist parting at dawn, the moon goddess appeared. Her form was softer now, less divine, more sorrowful. Her silver robes rippled like water, her gaze neither cruel nor kind. "Seraphina Vale," she said, her voice low. "Do you still hate me?" Seraphina didn't flinch. "I never hated you," she whispered. "I pitied you." The goddess tilted her head. "Pity? For what?" "For fearing what you couldn't control." The goddess's expression wavered, the moonlight dimming slightly around her. "And do you think your love will last forever? Mortals burn bright, but they fade." Seraphina lifted her chin. "Maybe. But love isn't measured in eternity. It's measured in truth. And ours burned so fiercely that even you had to look away." The goddess said nothing for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cruel. "You have learned much, child of flame." Her form began to fade, dissolving into motes of light. "But remember this. Should the moon ever call again, love will be tested once more." And with that, she was gone. Seraphina exhaled, the night air cool against her skin. "Let it come," she murmured. "This time, love will answer." By morning the valley shimmered with dew. Kyle found her on the terrace gazing out over their land, the wind brushing her hair like a lover's hand. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You were gone when I woke." "I needed to think," she said quietly. He leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "About her," Seraphina nodded. "She came to me." Kyle tensed, but she reached for his hand, calming him. She didn't threaten, she warned. He frowned. "Of what?" "That love isn't done testing us." Kyle pressed his lips to her temple. "Then let it try." She smiled softly. "You sound very sure of yourself." He met her gaze, his eyes burning steady and human, and utterly unyielding. "Because for the first time I'm not fighting the gods. I'm fighting for us." Seasons passed. The valley thrived. The rivers deepened. The forest bloomed. The wolves rebuilt not just their homes but their hearts. And amid that rebirth, stories grew. Stories of the Alpha who gave up his crown for love, and the Luna whose heart outshone the moon. They said when the Bloodfangs howled, the stars themselves leaned closer to listen. And sometimes, On quiet nights, Serafina and Kale would walk through the silver fields beyond the fortress, hand in hand, barefoot beneath the starlight. He would stop, watching her face in the glow of the moon, and whisper, "You saved me." And she would smile, the same radiant, unbreakable smile that once defied gods, and answer, "No, Kale. We saved each other." But far above the world they'd rebuilt, the moon lingered, patient, watching. In its depths, a faint shadow stirred, a whisper, a pulse, a promise that the story was not over. And as the night wind carried the sound of wolves singing across the mountains, the moon glowed brighter, not in anger, but in anticipation. Because even gods, it seemed, could not resist a love like theirs. And thus, the legend spread, of the reborn Luna and the Alpha who knelt, a tale not of power or prophecy, but of the love that dared to challenge heaven itself. If you enjoyed this story, don't hesitate to subscribe, hit that like button, and share it with someone who loves a good twist of fate and passion. I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what part stood out to you the most? And if you were in this story, who would you be? And what would you have done differently? Your thoughts might just inspire the next tale.